At the end of the day, 21 of the Undercover Policing Inquiry, Tranche 2, Phase 2. We heard this morning from Helen Steel. We heard this afternoon from the Undercover Police Officer, Bob Lambert. I feel like we've been waiting for the evidence of Bob Lambert for quite a long time. It was live streamed, which we weren't expecting this morning. It was also shown on BBC iPlayer, so hopefully more people have watched this bit of evidence than is normally the case. I'm joined by Dave Morris, who was following it all at the same time as I was. Dave, what did you make of it?
Well, first of all, about Helen this morning, she was magnificent, as would expect, telling the truth about Lambert's infiltration of London Greenpeace, which I was part of, and how he manipulated people. He hoovered up information on them, he manipulated them, he had relationships with women, he got people to do illegal things that he could report on, and he invented stuff that, what in Helen's case, he clearly he was doing illegal stuff himself and claiming that Helen was doing it, you know, what could you say? I mean, there's, a lot more. He's now giving evidence himself, and he's been involved with a whole range of highly controversial tactics that he used in his deployment. Go on, over to you.
I thought he cut a fairly pathetic figure. I feel like he appears to be like feigning some sort of frailty, which I don't really believe he has. He's got a long history of jogging and running. He seemed to pretend to be quite frail. The most common phrase he said all afternoon is "I can't recall." He claims that all those years of not inhaling have seemed to have affected his memory.
Yeah, I mean, this guy is extremely intelligent, but I think what we have to remember is that he is just a pawn for people higher up. So I was targeted by a number of spy cops in the 8 years before he came on the scene, and they concluded basically it was a waste of time, what they were doing. And when the last one, ended his deployment, Tony Williams, and one of the other officers concluded, or one of his managers concluded, that it wasn't any loss because he was unproductive. It strikes me that Lambert and the new ones in the 80s were under pressure to be quote-unquote productive, which means they wanted to see more crimes, more controversies, more justification for this completely unacceptable political policing unit. And he was under pressure to get results. And if people weren't doing enough that looked good in his reports, then it was up to him to try and manipulate them and act as an agent provocateur. And so the targeted women should be seen in that light as well, because he had 4 relationships with women, one of which resulted in a child, and he was getting information from them, and he was using them as cover, so that people, when he did start getting involved in serious crime, as he did, as we all know, and it's coming out later. People, would say, oh, he's in a relationship with someone. He can't be dodgy, because he seems normal, and and certainly if anyone thought he might be a policeman, no, they can't be a policeman. He's having a relationship with a woman, Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that really struck me from this afternoon's questioning was that 2024 Bob Lambert seemed to be disagreeing quite heavily with 2013 Bob Lambert about what 1984 Bob Lambert knew. He seems to have he's contradicted the evidence that with the interview that he gave to Channel 4 News in 2013. He's contradicting the evidence he gave to Operation Hearn. A lot of it seems to be protecting senior officers. He said back in 2013 that a lot of the knowledge went right to the top. He now says that he doesn't know that it went any further than the senior officer in C squad, or S squad rather.
About sexual relationships, I think that was what he was talking about. Yeah. But he also, as the mother of his child testified at the end of her evidence. That's Jackie. Last week, she said, quote unquote, he told me it was all authorised at the highest level. So yes, you're right. He seems to be thinking, like, what should I say about this? I mean, is it the, like you say, 1980s Lambert talking, or the 2010s, or now? He's stonewalling. He's lying, and what can you do? You just have to keep pressing him based upon the evidence that's available.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think viewers who are following along will, very much get the impression he's giving very slow, very ponderous answers. He's choosing every word. A lot of his answers are just reformatting the question he's been asked. Yeah. I mean, like some of them. I mean, because I'm writing things down verbatim, I really notice how much he's being put to him. Well, why was it that you were concerned about this? And he's like, well, I was concerned about this because of this. You know what I mean? It was like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that on the subject, which was the main subject they dealt with this afternoon, was about sexual relationships, which he had 4 of, is quite clear. There was almost like an omerta, like a mafia kind of edict. Nobody in this unit is ever going to talk about sexual relationships. They're not going to talk about whether they might happen, whether they did happen, what to do about it if they happen. The managers know about it or don't know about it. It was like a complete unwritten agreement not to talk about it, because obviously they knew it was going on. Yeah.
And I mean, he refers that
a bit like the army and the navy. Used to be, if you're homosexual, we don't want to know about it. Yeah. Otherwise, we're going to have to take action.
He was a lot clearer in 2013, though. He talked about how he was told it's going to happen. Keep it casual. Was his exact words when he was talking in 2013 to Operation Hearn. He says that other officers knew about it. They knew it was a risk, but that they weren't worried about it. There's this idea that somehow that it was it was going to happen, but it wasn't really a problem. I mean, there's a lot. Everything.
You can't have a sexual relationship that's casual. It's not a possible. You can't have a casual relationship. Either you have a relationship and take responsibility for what it could develop. It could result in pregnancy. Whatever. There could be all kinds of issues. There's no such thing as a casual relationship.
I mean, I think there's plenty of people out there who might disagree with you on that. But I mean, I think the key thing is everything we've heard so far has been relating to his training or his lack of training. Now, he referred to it in an Operation Hearn interview as being first class at the time. He's asked he claimed that even though that was to an answer of a question about his manager's knowledge of sexual relationships, he says that wasn't referring to sexual relationships, to which I think Barr very successfully skewered him, going, well, that wasn't an important part of the training then, or you didn't think it didn't matter, or it wasn't of a concern. And I mean, he completely fell apart. He flapped all over the place. He was unable to answer the question. He just did his circular answering of the question by really not saying anything, spending a lot of time getting the words out.
I mean, where do you start? I think the training, so-called training,
was a joke.
It's a joke. This is a secret unit doing stuff that they knew they shouldn't have been doing, that was suppressed for decades at the highest level. The information, the fact that it was happening was being suppressed, and the fact that somehow they got some kind of coherent training and guidance. It was all top secret stuff. So what he was challenged with is, were there any guidelines at all? And he was saying yes, that applied to all police, that applied to this unit,
with caveats. But then he couldn't. He couldn't name a single caveat.
Yeah, exactly. And police officers are not supposed to have relationships with members of the public. They're supposed to, not make up stuff. I mean, they do, but they're not supposed to. They're not supposed to break the law, which they were doing. These STS officers, So, I mean, it's hard to know where to start. I mean, I have to say that there is a bigger picture of the purpose of this unit was to target the left. Target people that were challenging the status quo in our society, and and MI5 the security services were heavily hands-on throughout the history of this unit. So they're watching, they're guiding, they're asking for information, they're putting pressure on, and you know, they act entirely secretly. They've got files on hundreds of thousands of people, and they saw this unit as really useful because it was the police doing stuff which MI5 therefore didn't have to deploy their own officers, and they work in a different way.
Sure. So as well as being questioned about his time as a field officer, Lambert also is being questioned about his role as a manager, which came some years later. He's only referred to it a couple of times in this afternoon's questioning, where he talked about the role of the Home Office in connection with the SDS, which I thought was quite revealing. Hopefully we'll hear more about that, because he
said the Home Office was aware of what they were doing when he was the manager, or he was aware that the Home Office was aware. I mean, we do know, he was asked about CND, for example, about the targeting of CND, because at this time, apparently Margaret Thatcher had told Special Branch they wanted dirt on CND because the nuclear weapons was an issue during the 1983 election, and CND was, you know, incredibly, or the campaign to abolish nuclear weapons was incredibly popular at that time because there were these massive demonstrations at military bases to prevent US sighting, you know, weapons of mass destruction aimed at Eastern Europe, and they wanted to sight them on British soil. So it was a huge controversy. There was literally, you know, tens of thousands of people blockading different military bases to prevent the arrival of these cruise missiles. And the Labour Party had adopted nuclear disarmament as its policy. So the Conservative government at that time wanted to, attack that movement, and SDS was one of the mechanisms, and the media was another mechanism. So they were looking for dirt on CND. So that he was asked about that, and that's when he said that, when he was a manager, which was later, actually, he was aware of direct links with the Home Office. But the Home Office signed off this unit every year. Yeah. Up until
actually the period of time when Bob Lambert was a manager, because up until '94 they had the annual reports every year, which they then had to sign off on. That changed whilst he was manager, so it just shows they still knew after that.
I just want to say one other thing, I think, you know, just to say that obviously he's going to give evidence over the next few days. One of the things that I know is going to be coming up is the whole anti-McDonald's campaign that London Greenpeace initiated, and that I got sued over and spent 10 years, fighting the case in court.
You might have heard of it.
The McLibel case, and we were given, free advice by Keir Starmer throughout that whole incredible longest case in English history. Did I say it was the longest case in English history?
Might have been mentioned.
Oh, yeah, okay. But anyway, the point is the whole involvement of the police and the SDS. Bob Lambert helped to write the original fact sheet. The next officer in London Greenpeace, John Dines, was monitoring the legal advice that we were getting from Keir Starmer in the early years of the case, which are the most important years for establishing our strategy, and so on. And then when Lambert became a manager, his role was to cover for John Dines and make sure that Helen Steel, who was also sued with me for the McLibel case, never found out who he was. Otherwise, the whole case could have collapsed. So you can see that the stakes are high. There's a whole range of controversies involving this guy. I do recommend people, follow it over the next few days, because although he's dragging it out and it looks like it's really boring, there's a lot of really important stuff coming out here This is the low point, if you like, of the SDS, I think.
If you are interested in getting an idea of the sort of things that Bob Lambert is going to be questioned about over the next 4.5 days, I really 4 days, I really recommend checking out an article on the Campaign Opposing Police Surveillance website, which looks at the likely questions he's going to be asked. We will be back tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. I'm not sure if it will be live streamed in the morning. I think it's more likely that the first bit will be. At some point, the live stream is going to end. I'll be doing a Twitter Spaces at 7:30 this evening. So if you have been following today, please join us and join the chat. I did have to delete quite a few of my tweets today relating to Helen Steel's evidence, including the video that I did in the break during the morning. Sorry about that. I'll have a look at the video, see if I can edit it and re-upload it. It may be that I can't. Thanks for joining. Anything else you want to add before we go, Dave? All right. Thanks for joining us. See you all tomorrow at 10 a.m. Or if you can, please do join us at 7:30 on Twitter. Thanks.